So this is Cloona Health Centre.
That's right, Ali.
That's the main building over there behind the tree.
That is, yes. That's the old mill. Cloona Mill, 220 years old.
What year was it built in?
Built, well, sometime around, we think 1784.
And what were the building here? What were the milling? Sorry.
It was a corn mill.
Corn mill.
There was a special act brought into play in 1784, which I think gave some kind of tax advantage to building, or some kind of grant aid, maybe it was, to millers who built their own mills and set up milling industries.
And who were the first people in here?
They were a MacDonald family.
MacDonald.
They were from Thornhill, and they leased the land from Lord Sligo, and they built the mills here. But the mills went into decline in the famine, obviously, with all the corn industry, and it found life as a woolen mill for a few years, maybe 20 or 30 years. We don't know exactly, but there's no record of when it finished at that. But there was a man living next door here, James McNeil, who as a child, he was a very old man now. When I was a kid, and that's, we're talking about 45 years ago, he remembered the carts bringing the tweed down to the harbour for export.
Were there flax here at some stage? Was there some talk about that?
There were flax mills there down below there. They were. I think they were probably closed at that point. They were back to the 1600s.
They weren't part of this?
They weren't, no. They weren't part of this milling operation. No,
and who built that beautiful gate there?
Well, presumably that was the same family, the MacDonald family, because they bought the land here in as far as we know, 1780 something, and there's no record of when that was built, but it was presumably built at the same time as the house and mills, all around the same time.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Beautiful, yeah.
It hasn't stirred.
So when did the Kellys get involved in it?
My parents bought the place in the 1940s, and well, yeah, that was it.
And what was it when they bought it? It wasn't a residence, was it?
Oh, it was a house, yeah.
It was a house, yeah.
It was the mill house, that's what they were buying, but the mill here was only a ruin at the time. They were buying the house.
Well, the house up the back?
Yeah, but the mill was in on the property, or at least so they thought at the time.
Oh.
And it wasn't until the 1960s they decided to renovate that. That was then renovated to accommodate initially Tibetan monks, refugees from the Chinese invasion of Tibet. My mother was clued into that because she was interested in Buddhism and yoga and things like that, which was all a bit wacky then, and she brought Tibetans over from the UK to suss it out. They were in exile, looking for places to set up communities, and they checked it out, thought it would work, did some work on it, along with a local builder, Paddy Gallagher from Westport.
That's right, Paddy had a shop.
And he did the building work, he was the builder, really, and then the monks off and on, and my father and my brother helping out. So it took maybe 5 or 6 years to get finished. And then they were declined visas, the monks.
So they had to leave?
So they had to leave, yeah. So after all that, they couldn't stay, because I think the Irish government didn't want to offend China at the time by giving them political asylum, which would have implied that China was being, illegal. And so then my parents...
Did you meet the monks? Did you know them?
Oh yeah.
You saw them, yeah. Were there many of them here?
I was a teenager when they were coming.
Yeah. Many of them were in it, but...
There were they came in dribs and drabs. There were sometimes maybe three and four here. A couple of them stayed on after. I think they left the order they were in, or their monastic way of life. Yeah.
And what garb did they wear?
Oh, they wore the right garb.
Yellow.
Those bright maroon and crimson robes and orange robes. I remember all sorts of strange robes. Caused a bit of amusement around. So
when did they decide to make it a health centre?
Well, after that, really.
After that
was because my mother had been interested in diet for years, and so initially what happened was the place was made available for hire as a venue, because there was no plan B. So when that failed, they made it available for hire. Groups would come and run yoga weekends and meditation weekends and healing weekends of one sort or another, psychics and you name it, the groups. But it was this sporadic, intermittent, And after a time, anyway, with my mother doing a bit of publicity, as she was good at, people would ring us up and see if they could come and join in maybe a yoga week that was going on here. And so my mother, who did yoga anyway herself, would say, well, there isn't anything on, but come anyway, and we'll do a regime here. I'll put you on a diet. And she followed her own. She was interested in a particular school of nutrition at the time, which had a lot to do with fasting and juicing and food combining, and so she kind of put that into practice here with the yoga and the walks, and we had a sauna, and so there were various aspects to it, and it was a cleansing week, as it was called then, which was to say it's what we call detoxing now. You know, detoxing back then was just for drugs and alcohol, whereas nowadays it's for anybody doing their own thing, and that was how it was then, and it's how it still is today. Absolutely.
And is it mostly vegetarian based, is it?
It is totally vegetarian.
Totally vegetarian, yeah.
Yes,
No meat.
And it's more than that, it's light food as
Light.
well. It's not just vegetarian, undifferentiated vegetarian food. It's actually very specific. It's fruit and vegetables. So soup and salad and fruit, light food really, to give the system a rest.
You've had a lot of personalities up here. I don't know if you're free to mention names or whatever. But
well, I wouldn't like to go into into names, but we have had, obviously famous. Well, people who come from all walks of life here. They do all walks of life. Really, political, cultural.
So your mother ran it initially, did she?
She did, yes.
And then you took over, yeah?
I took over in the 80s. Yeah.
In the 80s, yeah.
1985.
And it's still busy, it is.
Still busier than ever.
Busier than ever,
Busier than ever, yeah. Yeah, we've had our ups and downs. Times were tough at periods, and then.
Well, lots of business didn't survive the last 7 or 8 years.
That's right.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're still here.
Still here. Well, yes.
That's very nice.
No,
Very relaxing,
It's
yeah.
a quiet day today because the guests have all gone. They leave on Fridays, and then
Change over time.
new crowd come in on Sunday. So you can hear the laundry in action, and it's a good housekeeping operation.
It has an oriental flavour, has it?
I suppose you could say that. Yes.
The artwork in there, yeah.
That's true. Yes, the artwork. It's not particularly one thing or another, to be honest, but we do like peaceful decor. And
It is very peaceful here.
It's simple, and it's meant to be just for.
How many rooms in it?
There's 11 rooms.
11 rooms. Did you have to divide it up then? Or was it?
Oh yes, it was all just open spaces. There was no internal wall here at all, or partition, and it was divided up. Yeah, so it was, and all the bedrooms upstairs and downstairs. Just a couple of treatment rooms downstairs, and the tea room in here. This is where some of the work is happening at the moment now.
Plenty of fruit.
And plenty of fruit.
Plenty of vitamins.
No shortage of fruit around here.
Yeah.
You're looking at it's not really very presentable now.
Well, you're in the middle of work, aren't you? Yeah.
Yes, and this then is just the sauna area. It's just a standard sauna.
Yeah, the sauna.
So
Steam room. Sauna.
sauna. Yeah. So really, there's very little to it.
I used this myself one time.
Oh, did you?
I did, yeah. Jack McAleer, a few of us used to come up here we were doing judo. You didn't know that, did you?
Yes, I
you
did.
remember
Yes,
the judo,
I remember
yeah?
the judo fellow. He was staying over in Weirs. What's his name was?
I can't remember his name, but I
He's an
remember
English
we done the
fellow.
judo in here for a winter.
Yes.
Which was,
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was enjoyable. Yeah, really.
I'd say it was. Yes.
Well, when you had McAleer around, you had a bit of fun anyway.
Wouldn't like to be throwing him around the place.